We're just going to get started right here. Today, we're going to talk about mindset morning, and we're going to go through the amygdala and some things in the brain. So, Cade, I know down in St. George, it's pretty, the weather's maybe rainy, but up here, it's like mayhem. We got, at least, for real, we got a foot of snow in the valley here in Salt Lake. So, for those of you who are out there, hopefully you're not driving and watching this video. But yeah. It's
regardless of what the weather's like.
Yeah. The exit at my house was just packed with semis. Jess and I got stuck. We went to Pilates at 6 this morning. They canceled it. We got stuck on the way home. Yeah, it's been an adventurous morning.
Sounds like it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
I think it was like I don't know, somewhere probably around like 60 this morning.
Of course it was.
The rain all dried up. It was I had to wear my sunglasses. My eyes actually hurt because the sun was so bright.
Oh man, well, we feel bad for you. Yes. Well, as we get people coming on, did you see Dom shaved his head last night?
I saw that.
Not my idea.
He should have kept the patch on top.
I know.
Started a new style.
I told Jess that his the battery, like the clippers quit working. She's like, what?
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're ready. I think we got our Instagram world going. We got some really cool people there, and we got our webinar peeps are all on. So, Cade, do you want to kick it off?
Yes, and I'm just adding, getting Facebook Live going.
Okay.
So everyone in the social world can see some of the amazing stuff we're going to talk about. But welcome everybody to the Health Transformation webinar. I'm really honored to have you guys here with us. So today we're going to be diving into the amygdala, some different brain health things where and then we'll dive into some actions where you can really fine-tune how you start your morning and just get off on the right foot when it comes to your mindset and overall meditation. And so got some really cool stuff today.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So Regan, let's dive in. So this amygdala thing, what is that?
So the amygdala is the reptilian part of your brain. It's the part of your brain that's closest to your body. And so it's designed to protect us. And so if your amygdala, if you look at it, if your amygdala is not working, then you would just go step out in front of a bus on the street and not realize that that's a threat. So it's actually really helpful. Or you wouldn't pay attention if you're walking down a dark alley and you're like, man, I feel like there's something threatening going on. That's your amygdala, and it's there for survival. And we've always had this amygdala with us. And if you look at any brains from an evolutionary perspective, from other primates even, the amygdala has always been the central feature. And so that's where, like dogs and animals, they can get pretty compulsive about things and they don't really rationalize and think things through. It's because the amygdala is a more dominant feature. They don't have the prefrontal cortex. So there's less sensory processing going on in the brain than there is in a human brain. So the other thing is our amygdala, it houses memory retention associated to emotional reactions. So for those of you who don't like driving in the snow, and if you have some triggers around that, then today is not going to be the best day for your amygdala. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about because you're out there in the snow sliding around and you're afraid of it and your heart rate gets elevated. And so this is all driven by your amygdala. It's actually really important. It also interprets the stimuli from the world and then allows you to translate those into physical reactions. So this amygdala is a beast that can be tamed, and that's what we're going to be talking about today is some of the studies that we're going to talk about, chronic anxiety, chronic depression. If you've had areas of your life, maybe PTSD, we're going to show how your brain actually changes anatomically, but then we're going to give you a solution at the end. So stick with us for about the next 20 minutes, and we're going to kind of dissect this, and then we're going to show you what's called the mindset morning and actually go through that, what I think is one of the best tools you can use when it comes to health. So Cade, what do you notice about your amygdala? How can you contribute? Like, what do you think your amygdala helps you with? What doesn't it help you with?
All right. So that's actually a really good question. What does it help me with? Like if there's like a cheetah chasing me, which that happens regularly, I get a lot of adrenaline and I run. So fight or flight, really.
Yep.
So sometimes it can be good because it can help trigger some responses that maybe you wouldn't realize otherwise.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of specifics. For me, I try to turn off the amygdala when I'm mountain biking.
Mm-hmm. I've noticed. Yep.
Because otherwise I might just jump off my bike or something. Or I might start running uphill.
Right. Well, I think that's a good point because, when you're in your flow state, like when you're doing activities where there's a high risk and you are completely focused on that task and you enter into your flow state, your brain waves actually change. So instead of being in this, like, the alpha and beta waves, suddenly the theta kicks in and you're just like going, you're just like in your groove. So I think you nailed it there. But if your amygdala was going off, you'll be going off a drop on a mountain bike, which I've done. And all of a sudden, like, you freak out, you realize I'm going to die. Like, what was I thinking? And then when you get all stiff and you're more likely to wreck. And so, just learning how to tame that amygdala is like one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself in life, because yes, your amygdala is very important. Like you said, I mean, Cade's getting chased by cheetahs almost every day. Did you say cheetahs or cougars?
It's more cougars than cheetahs.
More cougars, yeah. I figured, down in St. George, but okay, bad joke. All right, so the amygdala is something that it doesn't have to dominate your life. And here's what they've done, some of the studies, and a lot of this comes out of Harvard University, but what they've done is they've used MRIs, and they've shown that there's smaller hippocampal volume and increased amygdala volume with depression, PTSD, and especially depression with early abuse. So some of the sad things that happen if we have these patterns where we've undergone times of our life when we've been abused, especially with kids, that amygdala is actually, they're finding that there's an increased volume there. And when there's an increased volume in your amygdala, you're going to be more reactive to the environment. The smaller hippocampal volume will mean you'll have less creativity in your brain, and everything will be focused on just survival. And so I'd really encourage all of you to, just look at, what's happened throughout your childhood. Have you ever had a period of your life where you've had PTSD? And I think in modern day society, we don't put those things and we don't categorize them correctly. We think PTSD is something that soldiers have, or if you've been like severely abused. But PTSD actually can show up if you've had periods of chronic stress. Like if you've been in a job for a long time and day after day, you're just showing up at that job and just getting beat up, getting your ass kicked. Well, that is, something that's going to cause some PTSD. Or if you're in a relationship, or even having kids can trigger PTSD where you've got no time to rest. I've treated several mothers over the years, and I just saw one of them Monday. And what happens is they have a baby and they get, through that kind of 18-month mark, and then they have another baby. And that cycle repeats itself for about 6 or 7 years. And by the time you get through that haze, like your body is so depleted, your hormones are so depleted, you actually end up taking on the characteristics of PTSD. So very tough. And I mean, Cade, I know you're dealing with an amazing newborn right now, super sweet Olive, but you've probably seen, we could probably measure Sierra's amygdala, and what you said probably would be bigger now than it was before the baby.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, she went through, there's with her heart rate and everything, but man, it's crazy, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense though. Interesting study.
It really is, because if you think about it, well, the larger the amygdala is, and this is what the researchers were able to conclude, is the more intense your fear and anxiety become. And so if you're thinking about doing something in your life and you're like really like you want to go for it, but you've got this thing that just, this fear that keeps overwhelming you, there's a good chance your amygdala could be enlarged. And that is very interesting, because if you increase the physical size of the amygdala, then your neural connections are growing, so that all the nerve pathways in the amygdala are just going to be there, and that's going to stimulate and drive your decisions. So this thing called free will, I've been doing this meditation course called Waking Up with Sam Harris, and one of his trainings is called Free Will. And he actually talks about maybe free will is not quite what we make it out to be. We think we have this perfect ability to choose in every set of circumstances. But if you look at it, if your amygdala is that large, you're not going to be able to choose your reaction every time, because it's going to trigger those old patterns, those old emotions, and you can end up in that cycle of fear and anxiety. So here's some of the things that you'll find as well. The smaller hippocampal volume and larger amygdala, that has been associated with the range of trauma and psychiatric disorders. In almost every case, there's been some type of psychological trauma. So figure out what that psychological trauma is with you. And then one of the hormones that drives this pattern is a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol inhibits brain-derived nootropic factor. And you guys are like, first of all, what's cortisol and what's brain-derived nootropic factor? So let's talk about those. So Cade, what is cortisol, first of all? What type of hormone is it?
It's your stress hormone.
Mm-hmm.
It's produced by your adrenal glands, and it can be, it can be in the right size or right levels. It can be, fairly. It's a really important hormone, but if it's out of whack, it can be inflammatory. It can cause blood sugar issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it does both, though. It can help with inflammation.
Yep.
It can also help with stabilizing your blood sugars if you have the right levels of cortisol.
Exactly. So yeah, cortisol is one of the primary hormones that governs our circadian rhythms in our body. So it helps us wake up in the morning. That's when cortisol is elevated. It cleans up the mess, like Cade talked about. It cleans up inflammation. But if your body's always in the stress mode and cortisol is always at the peak, then not only is your body going to put on more belly fat, because the cortisol is out there saying, hey, we don't have time to digest, we're in fight or flight mode. And then your body's going to collect this belly fat, and it's going to destabilize your blood sugar, because cortisol's intention is to help you outrun the cougars in Cade's case. And so in order to outrun those, you got to have some sugar, right, Cade?
Yeah.
Energy's got to be high. And then brain-derived nootropic factor, this is one of those amazing neurotransmitters in your brain that helps you lay down permanent memories and creativity. And if you have adequate levels of brain-derived nootropic factor, you'll learn quickly, your emotions will be sharp, you'll feel very grounded, you'll have better memory. Brain-derived nootropic factor is like one of the gifts, and exercise is the best way to increase your brain-derived nootropic factor. We've actually found in studies you can reverse dementia with brain-derived nootropic factor. I just read a study this morning on aniracetam, which is one of my favorite nootropics. Aniracetam used for the course of a year in high doses, like 700 milligrams. They found that it increased the brain-derived nootropic factor more than the other like dementia drugs. They took a group of patients who had dementia, and using aniracetam helped improve their brain-derived nootropic factor. So if those of you who don't remember what you're doing on this, you may want to consider using some aniracetam. Very good for your brain. So let's talk about this chain of command. So if you're looking at all the stress in your body, stress in your brain affects all the stress everywhere. And one of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, what he says is that our eyes only see and our ears only hear what our brain is looking for. And if you don't have like a real clear intention on what your brain's looking for every day, then this is where the amygdala starts to creep in. And so setting an intention for the day is one of the most powerful things you can do, because that intention in your brain is going to influence all the primary hormones in your body, your insulin, your cortisol, your thyroid, and then your sex hormones. So insulin is what governs our blood sugar. And as Cade was talking about earlier, anytime you have a stressful situation and cortisol gets released from your adrenal glands, your liver is pushing sugar into the blood or glucose into the blood. So you have this nice supply of energy. So you can outrun the cougar or the tiger or whatever animal's chasing you. But then what happens is insulin gets secreted from the pancreas and tries to pull the blood sugar out of the blood because your body's not moving, you're not exercising. So one of the worst places you can be when you're stressed is in your car when you're just sitting, or at your desk at work when you're just sitting, or any time when you're just sitting. If you feel these surges of stress, then exercise is one of the best things you can do to actually start utilizing that energy. And one of the things Olympic athletes used to do, and I don't know if they do it anymore, this book that I read was about 20 years old, called Inner Athlete. And what Olympic athletes would do is a lot of crunches when they'd have the stress come up. And sit-ups can actually be a great way of lowering cortisol. And then insulin, make sure you're gonna have that spike of insulin, and then your blood sugar drops. And then what are you going to do behaviorally, Cade, when your blood sugar drops? What are you going to want to eat?
Your arm or anything. Yeah. Anything that you can get your hands on, you're ready to eat.
Yeah. So that's where that, willpower, it's out the window, and that free will might be limited if your blood sugar is all over the place. And so we won't judge you if we see you like munching on that big old donut or whatever you're going for. We'll just say we got to get your blood sugar balanced. And then if cortisol, one of the things cortisol does is if cortisol is elevated, your body goes into kind of a lower metabolic state, because your body, after a long period of time, initially goes into its high metabolic state, but after a period of time, you go into a low metabolic state, and your thyroid hormones quit getting converted effectively in your liver. So then you start putting on more weight. And then this affects your sex hormones. In men, we start to see that men go through what's called andropause. And andropause is when your estrogen levels start to rise up and your testosterone drops. And this is, for you men on this, no offense, but this is where we start crying at television commercials. We get touched by that Bud Light commercial where, that we find out they don't have high fructose corn syrup in their beer or whatever it is. We get a lot more emotional, but in some cases, men, when our estrogen levels rise, that's why we become better grandparents and a little more connected in our relationships, but not an ideal, for us men. If we want to live a long time, you got to have high testosterone. Women, what will happen is, you will get an imbalance where your estrogen will not be able to saturate the areas that it needs to go to, and then you can end up with hot flashes. You can end up having your hair fall out. You can feel tired all the time. So it's really important to go back and trace these hormones back to the origin, which is typically the brain. And for women, you guys make half the amount of cortisol as men and release less cortisol under stress. So this is where you're more prone to having fatigue, any kind of joint diseases. You can end up with more autoimmunity because you don't have the cortisol cleaning up the mess. And antidepressants, if you happen to be on antidepressants, that can increase your cortisol. So here's some things you can do. Let's talk about some solutions, but I think hopefully everyone's got a pretty good understanding that your brain influences all these hormones in your body, and then the hormones dictate how you're feeling, how you're looking, just like your brain does. But the hormones are a little longer message than just your neurotransmitters. So here's another study out of Harvard Medical School. They found that 30 to 40 minutes of moderate exercise a day, such as walking, can balance cortisol levels, manage blood sugar levels, and help you sleep better. Those of you who are trying to get your cortisol balanced, the very first thing you need to do is get your circadian rhythms mastered. Like, get out in the sun in the first 30 minutes of the day. And Cade, you were able to do that today. We had no sun. We still have no sun. It's coming down like crazy, blizzard here. But get out in the sun, like first thing in the morning, go for a nice walk, do some breathing. And then at night, make sure you're no screen time, at least an hour before bed. And then if you want to take some power naps, what they found is taking a 20-minute power nap and during an afternoon break is one of the quickest ways to reduce cortisol. So Robert Stickle, the Harvard sleep researcher, found that quick naps help you solve problems better. Meditation, UCLA found that long-term meditators had better preserved brains than non-meditators as they aged. And participants who had been meditating for an average of 20 years had more gray matter through volume throughout the brain. So their brains had more of these neuroconnectivity. And so I think this is, it's really important. So just so you guys can kind of get a foundation, let's jump into the secret tool that I think is probably our most important tool that we use at East West Health, and it's called your Mindset Morning. So Cade, do you mind pulling that up?
Sure thing.
Okay. So Cade's going to pull this up for us, but Mindset Morning, if you think about it, in my newest book, it's called Your Healthy Self. It is in production right now. As of yesterday, we made it to production, so I'm super pumped about that. So get ready. But one of the things I said is if you can't craft like one good day, it's going to be hard to really craft an entire life that's really meaningful for you. And so what I found is this simple tool, the Mindset Morning. I've been doing it for about 4 years. I took a concept out of Hal Elrod's book called The Miracle Morning, and I just consolidated it for the people who, reality, he wants you waking up at 4 a.m. and you have a whole hour, this process, which is great. But I said, man, that's just kind of, it's a lot to commit to. And I wondered if in 15 minutes you could get very close to the same results that Hal Elrod speaks about in Miracle Morning. And what we found is absolutely you can do this. So very first thing to have a great morning, guess what you need to do to have a great morning? Cade, what mornings are the best for you?
When I get a full night's sleep.
When you get a full night's sleep, right?
Yeah.
No matter if it's your birthday or Christmas or whatever, if you don't have a full night's sleep, you just don't feel as good, right? Like nothing, you can't like create an environment where all of a sudden you're like, oh, I feel great. Like drink a gallon of coffee and it makes you feel worse if you have a bad night's sleep, right?
Yep.
It makes you more tired. So very first thing you want to do is right around 7 to 8 at night, just dim your lights. If you can get those amber, those red lights, if that doesn't creep out the other people in your house, that can be really good. Avoid screen time, the 60 minutes before bed. Do some stretching, some breathing. Start reading a book. Spend some time with your family. Give them hugs. I mean, it's really fun for me to have conversations with my kids and with my wife at night. Sometimes I can get them down to just sit them in one area, and I love that. I find I sleep better that way, and it just feels the connection's much better with everything turned off electronically. Now, maybe we'll look something up at Google if we're having like some conversation about the population of a city, because I have to know the number, but otherwise pretty good about it. And so then you want to make sure you're sleeping in cooler temperatures. You can take an Epsom salt bath. I love taking, making sure I'm taking some minerals at night before I go to sleep is really helpful to calm the nervous system. Making sure you don't eat about 3 hours before you go to sleep is another key component of getting a good night's sleep. And then you sleep, you get a great sleep. First thing you do when you wake up, make your bed. Now there's a whole book, there's books written on this, and some of the most successful people in the world, they say, first thing in the morning, just make your bed. At least you've done one thing correctly. So make your bed. Now kids, if you're listening to this, make your bed, please. And then brush your teeth, obviously floss. Get all that crap out of your mouth, because overnight you have bacteria that starts to infect in your mouth. So brush your teeth first thing in the morning, floss them, put some water on your face, and don't jump right into your Instagram or Twitter account or whatever you do in the morning. Just avoid the screen time, and then you're going to go down and you're going to start your Mindset Morning. So you guys ready for this? Cade, you ready for the Mindset Morning?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so first 5 minutes, what you're going to do is just focus on your breath. Breathe in through your nose. Feel your belly expand like a balloon. And then breathe out through your mouth. And then in and out. And then sit with your back straight and clear your mind. So just let everything percolate. If you have a hard time clearing your mind, this is where it's really important to think about the things you're grateful for. Someone asked, what minerals do you use? I use it's by Integrated Nutrition, I believe, and it's just magnesium and calcium. So magnesium is the best mineral you can take at night. Thanks for asking that. Okay, so you're breathing, and so you set your timer for 5 minutes, because meditation can feel like it's going on forever. And like, I've been in meditation classes, and at 30 minutes has felt like 3 hours. And I've been in other meditations where 3 hours feels like it's 10 minutes. But 5 minutes, just set your timer so you know you got 5 minutes. And then that timer goes off. Now we're switching gears, and now you're going to goals and affirmations. And it's really important to, as you're going through your affirmations, really get your confidence built up by focusing on what you're grateful for, the abundance, the gratitude. And then you ask yourself, what do you want to accomplish? You know, what do you want to have? Who are you? What do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What boundaries do you need to set so you can focus on the things that matter most in your life today? And I think it's really important that you have intentionality, because remember, our ears only hear and our eyes only see what our brains are looking for. And so your brain needs to have an intention throughout the day. Otherwise, the intention, anyone's problem is going to become your problem. You're going to be on your heels all day, just getting beat up. So 5 minutes, you're doing that. And I put it on the notes on my phone, is where I have my mindset morning. I'll show you guys here, but yeah, it's just on the notes section. And that's just where I have it. I guess you guys can't see it very well. But yeah, then I have my mindset morning, and then I'm always updating it. So it's something that I can update, I can look at. Keep your phone on airplane mode so you're not getting distracted by text coming in. And then the last 5 minutes is you want to visualize these things. How will it feel and look when you accomplish your goals for the day? What are the 3 top things you're going to be focusing on? How will it feel to have better health? What does it feel like to have good digestion? What are you going to be eating? And so just visualizing, kind of your whole core process of the foods you're going to eat, and making that decision very first thing in the morning in your mindset morning can be one of the most crazy decisions you ever make, because you decide once instead of all throughout the day. Is like, well, should I eat that cracker or not? I made this decision. I'm going to eat a lot of vegetables today. I'm going to eat grass-fed meat. I'm going to actually condense the time that I eat down to 10 hours. And so once you just make the decision, then you don't have to keep deciding. You don't have to look at the clock and be like, well, it is past my 10-hour window, but that dessert looks really good. It's like, no, in my mindset morning this morning, I already made the decision. So make sure you're eating lots of healthy foods. Sometimes fermented foods can be really good for your gut. Clean fats like butter, coconut oil, avocados, your organic vegetables, really good healthy meats. Make sure that you're going to exercise every day. Just put that as part of your program. Some days are going to be more intense than others. And this is your exercise. This is your mindset morning. Just look in and acknowledge all the great things in your life. Because if you're on this, if you're able to have the technology to be on our webinar, to be on Facebook or Instagram, like you guys, there's at least 1 billion people on the planet who would die to trade places with you, right? And so I think it's just really important to realize that. If you're stuck in traffic, if you're stuck in the snow, just realize, man, there's some places, there's people out there who, they'd give anything to be where you're at in life. So hopefully you can take a minute and just really get grounded in that, appreciate that, and hopefully this mindset morning will help. And so, Cade, any additional insights you'd like to give everyone today before we end?
Yeah, I think the biggest insight or biggest piece of advice I can give you guys is just do this. I think when, before I started getting involved with East West Health and working with Regan, and, for those of you that I think most of you on this webinar have heard my story, but, just completely transformed my health and my life. And so, this is one of the things that I thought, and I had already gone through a lot of different nutritional changes and diet changes and, reversing my autoimmunity and all these different things, had lost some weight. This was kind of the last thing that I worried about. And I always thought like, oh, it's like, it's not that impactful. This, like, hands down, when it comes to having a better mindset for your whole day, just having a lot less anxiety, hands down, so much better when business is stressful, or when work's stressful, or your family life stressful, whatever it is. This is something that you can always have. Just start your day out with 15 minutes. That's all it takes. So yeah, my biggest piece of advice for you guys is just do it.
Yep. Make the decision once, like every day you're going to do a mindset morning, and just get it done. Like Cade said, I couldn't agree more. So thanks you guys so much for being on, and really appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be here next Wednesday. Make sure you tell your friends, your family, anybody who you believe could maybe have their amygdala get shrunk a little bit. We'll try and shrink amygdalas on this program. All right. Okay. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.